Hello, lovely people. I'm Sinéad, and happy Wednesday. Today, we're going to go over what happened with the skirt, because you may have noticed there was no post showing a finished skirt on our lovely Lady Grace back there. That's because it went wrong. And I figured out why, and I figured out what I'm going to do. So I want to just share that with you, and please let me know, what do you do when a project goes wrong? Do you try to reuse the materials? Do you just chunk it in the trash so that you don't have to think about it? Just throw it in a corner. Throw it in a corner is a popular one. I know I've done that a lot. So yeah, just let me know, what it is you do when a project doesn't go the way you'd planned. So we're going to turn around the camera and get started. Okay, I hope I can describe this in a way that makes sense. This is all the pleats, basically, which are gathers. They are accomplished in the same way as a running stitch to create a gather so that you've got the right length. And I'm going to say the first time I did this, okay, I got the waistband to where it fit on Grace exactly, had a generous overlap for a nice snap, and so I thought that was a great place to start. Our waistband was nice and sturdy, so I thought it was going to be really good for that. Then I gathered this up. One of the things that I forgot about cartridge pleats is that you need to be stitching as close to this edge right here as you can. That way all of these ends of the gathers rest against the body, flush with the waistband, and it helps the skirt to stand up. I finished this velvet with the rayon seam binding, and obviously it doesn't match. If I had had a rayon seam binding that matched, I might have tried hitting that very edge. It still would have been kind of a shiny strip out here. Texture-wise, it would have been different, but I don't think it would have showed as much as this very different color would show. So that wasn't an option. It wasn't an option to go in here. So I went in a little further, which I'm going to be honest, that's where, on human size, that's about where I would stitch. I mean, maybe a little bit closer to this finished edge, but and usually I would have folded the fabric with, like a rolled hem or just a 1/4 inch turn type, double turn type finish before starting this, so that there was no raw edges here. You don't want raw edges on this. You want that finished because it gets a lot of chafe. So yeah, I sitting here, was messing around with it. I put it on the doll. It went like this. Once this was all on there, it was like, I can't reach. And and I knew that if I made the waistband bigger, it would hang funny and it would not look right. It just was going to go into another direction, and it was time to stop. It was time to say, okay, the style of skirt with, we're just going to call them gores like I did last week, with the triangular pieces of more like a Victorian walking skirt, was a better plan for the Grace scale. So the idea of getting this fullness to stand out from the skirt, so your waistband is straight up and down and your skirt comes out, it just wants to stick out. That was not going to be here. Let's see if we can show that in profile. That was not going to be on the skirt for Grace. It's just not going to. Now, I might try it again with a fabric that is thin enough, like a lawn or something, that I can fold and finish the edge and then stitch into that finished edge and get that fullness. But I'm not going to do it right now. I'm not going to do it probably for a while. Going to give myself a break from this. I also gathered it all up guessing, and it didn't fit on the waistband. I had done that whole running stitch, and it was still wider than the waistband. I had probably 1.5 inches maybe of extra length, and I was just like, that is not going to work. And you'll note that I still had some of that problem because that's what causes this, is that I didn't pick up that bit of the gathers did not get attached to the skirt or to the waistband. So I went and I did the math, and I was like, my math for that running stitch is like maybe a 1/16 of an inch long, different. And I was so close. It was just so close that using imperial measurements instead of metric was getting very frustrating. And I wished I had started with the metric measurements. But as you can see, my board here that a lot of things get measured on is inches, and it's frustrating because it's harder for me when you get down to the tiny little measurements. It's much harder for me to divide those and figure out exactly even spacing for the stitches. And one of these days I'm going to have to get a centimeter mat from someplace, even if I have to make it, but cutting mat. Anyway, so we've hit this point where this isn't going to work. We know that it needs to be stitched right at the edge in order to work. Or there is another solution. You may be wondering about this partial doll you can see over here. There. Now you can see her face. That's a little more, I don't know, humanizing. That is my solution to the use, because I don't want to, this is a pretty skirt. And it did turn out that extra little distance I put in there that was curved does hang just fine. And I think it'll hang even better when I put it on a bigger doll, because that's going to be my solution. I have this doll that is probably 16 inches, not 18. It would be better if she was 18. I'm guessing here. To the top of her head, not including her hair, she's 16 inches. So I am going to alter this skirt so that she can wear it and do basically the same thing. I'm going to take my velvet ribbon to make a waistband. By the way, if you haven't met this doll before, this is a doll that I made for my oldest daughter, Joey. When I made the doll, Joey wasn't going by Joey. Joey, or Josephine, was her middle name. And she changed that later. And so she changed the doll's name. So the dolls that I made for the kids were all named using the children's middle name. So Arthur's doll was Charlie, and Joey's doll was Josephine. And when she changed and started using her middle name as her first name, or as the name she chose to go by, she changed Josephine's name here to Geraldine. And Geraldine is harder for me to hang on to, but I'm trying. We're trying to respect Joey's name change on her doll, and Geraldine, who doesn't mind the name at all. She thinks it's a pretty cool name. So Geraldine here has not had new clothes since Joey was little, or littler. I mean, I can't remember how old she was when the last time we made clothes. She was probably a teenager, but not an adult. And so it's been quite a while since, this spring, Joey's going to be 40. And yes, I had her when I was young. But that aside, Geraldine here would like a new dress. So she's going to get at least a new skirt out of this. So the first thing we have to do is take this apart. And I don't know about you, but that's not always easy to see, to take something like this apart. So I just did a whip stitch by hand. So if we can see in here, and it's black on black, so it's going to be a little difficult to get that first thing and not tear up. I don't want to tear up the waistband, because I think I can reuse that in future for Miss Grace, since it does fit her, on a different style of skirt. Maybe one that is more modern even. I don't know. I don't have any black. I don't have any black velvet fabric, but maybe I do. But if I were to use velvet again for the fashion dolls, I think I'd go for something a little more fitted so that the seam allowances weren't such, gathers and stuff weren't an issue. And I would, I think I'd go for velour instead because it is lighter weight. It doesn't interfere with, when you put something full on them, there's less fullness it's just less bulk in the fabric itself, even though it's fuzzy. And I did the velour gown, if you may have seen, for Wednesday, Elowen as Wednesday, around, well, just after Halloween, maybe. I'm not sure. I can't remember when I posted those. But yeah, and that worked out just fine. So we're going to take this lovely velvet waistband. Yes, it's velvet on the inside and the outside, and set it aside. And I don't know about you, but I have problems with seeing black, so I may have to get an auxiliary light over here. And I'm going to have to take out the gathering stitch and redo that as well. So I think what I'm going to do is stop and then do some stuff off camera and come back and share how it's going. Okay, so maybe I won't go finish anything. I'll just share this. I have the length of the waistband, and I just put it around Geraldine, piece of ribbon, made sure I had seam allowance and overlap, which of course everything just shifted and doesn't look that way, but not over her pants, like just around her waist, and I think it's a little bunchy back there. Anyway, we have enough for seam allowance and for a snap. Then taking the velvet, which it's really cool. It is like working like Velcro to kind of mesh to itself. And I just do this, you can just do a running stitch if you want to, keep the stitches small, or a back stitch. And we stitch the ends together, and I'm anchoring it without a knot. Anyway, keep it, do the seam allowance on just the ends. So once I get the ends stitched, then I'll flip the wrong sides together and do a whip stitch along the top of the ribbon instead of taking up seam allowance out of this short distance of the ribbon. So when I did the whip stitches on here, I try to keep them within that edge. On the velvet ribbon, now you're using a different ribbon, they all have it, that edge where the loop of the weave is, and on the velvet, there's no velvet there. So I try to keep the whip stitch no deeper than that. It goes most of the time just right into the very, very edge of the velvet there. And you might notice here that I have developed a slight curve, and so much dog hair. A slight curve to this because I pulled up my whip stitch too tight as it went. So try to be mindful of that. It's still going to fit her, no problem. Has the right overlap. We're going to have to get some tape out here and pull the dog hair off before I go a little bit crazy. But when you pull your whip stitch too tight at the top, it causes this curve. Now, I'm not going to worry about closing the bottom because I'm going to whip stitch it onto the skirt and let that, be sure I pick up both sides of the ribbon. So be sure that you keep it sandwiched and pick up both sides when stitching it down. But now I'm going to go and take this out and run a new gathering stitch. I'm trying to, I think it's easier to see on the back. Yeah. So I used green thread so that, you know, it wouldn't show as much. Now when I want to see it, of course I can't see it. But there, that's so the running stitch, simple to take out. Now all I have to do is put in another running stitch and start again, bringing it down to the length of the waistband. I sat down so that I could talk to you and work on this. So I've got the waistband underlap. I went ahead and stuck it out another 1/4 inch past the designed in overlap because I want more overlap for this bigger doll. And that's just not necessary, but I decided to do it anyway. So you're just picking up the front edge of basically a gather and whip stitching through to hold it in, to put it in place on the waistband as you stitch along. And when I'm through, you fold it up and you don't see any of those stitches, although I do have some loose threads I'm going to have to deal with. I wonder what that's from. That's probably from the initial assembly. It looks like one of the green threads. I switched to black, so, you know, things are different now. So I don't know how your day is going. I was thinking so hard about what I was going to do with this skirt that I opened the refrigerator door looking for the hot water. We all know there's no hot water in the refrigerator. If there is, there's a problem. How I was focused this morning. So Joey and Arthur have been going to the studio almost every day to get throwing done so that Joey's not out here in the cold, because it's gotten really cold. And in previous years, production would go down. You know, she'd still get things thrown, but it would be a lot slower, a lot less time spent because of how cold it is outside, and the potter's shed is completely uninsulated metal shed where you're pretty much experiencing the weather. You know, she'd put hot water so that in a bucket so that and come in several times a day to renew said hot water, which is, you know, and warm up and all of that, so that she didn't spend too much time out there all in one stretch in the cold. But having the studio to go in and throw has been, well, exciting, kind of awesome. But it also means that we're putting a lot more miles on the car, using a lot more gas. So, you know, expenses go up for the one thing, and doesn't go, you know, whatever. It is what it is. And so far so good on the getting orders from wholesale orders. That's something that both Joey and Arthur are excited about, is wholesale orders. That they, you know, that way the pottery is going out locally. It's seen locally in restaurants, and we actually have pottery on consignment at one of the bakers, and he also uses the pottery in his baking, so that's pretty cool. And we also sell through the local farm stand where Cloud works, and that was, you know, that's actually kind of been really exciting, because they like to support, you know, local, obviously, in the farm, being a farm stand, it's all about local. So getting a local supplier of various different items is nice. And we did the Oyas for them last year, and we're changing up how we're doing the oyas, but we got more variety, I think, in mugs and other products on their shelves. So if you're in the area, go hit the Chimicum farm stand and check out the wares, or, you know, be sure to catch Arthur in Ballard. Yeah, I just completely could not remember Ballard. On Sundays, because the Ballard Market's on Sundays. Starting this spring, he'll be in our local, or more local to us. We don't actually do the Chimicum farm stand, but we do the Port Townsend farm stand. Farmer's market, not farm stand, farmer's market. And so he'll be doing that as soon as the farmer's market in Port Townsend starts back up. Which is, you know, it'll be 2 days, you know, he'll be going out more, and they got to get used to that. The offspring are introverts, every single one of them, and they don't really like doing this sales of any kind, but they've done it. I mean, it's in Port Townsend, it's a small enough community that is the main source of employment, is doing sales for somebody. You're gonna, you know, be a clerk. And Arthur clerked for us at the video store back when we had that, and we discovered that he was really good at customer service, and he was really good at getting our computer. So what I was trying to say before the dog started barking and distracting me is that he was really good with the computer catalog of all the titles, and easy looking it up no matter where you were, whether you were at home and accessing what we had, or whether you were in the store using it to check a title out to somebody. Anyway, so that's kind of how we discovered that he had pretty good grasp on how to do those kind of things. And what he's doing now isn't all that different. He's got the websites, and we're trying to work on integrated your inventory, so that if you sell it online, it shows up and you know that it's sold across platforms. And that's really cool. That's a nice little thing. I'm getting close here to the end, and I swear that the gatherers just fight you more about staying in place. And I'll be able to show you how this is different. And I'm gonna try, we have make sure that we get the bra edges tucked in here on that ribbon. Make sure that we get everything all zipped up. So having stitched through this velvet in the same spot multiple times may have made it a little rough. I'm hoping it doesn't develop holes. But since this doll doesn't get to play anymore, she just sits here and keeps me company. I don't think we'll have to worry about it too much. I'm going to bury that. I'm also going to look for a top to go with this skirt in the stuff that we have someplace, and see if I can clean something up without trying to make something. And I don't know how successful I'll be. So we still have this edge sticking out there, but the advantage here is that since this doll is a soft-bodied doll, just like us humans are all soft and squeegee, that won't interfere with it fitting. We should be able to put a snap on here and have it fit just fine. So here's the moment of truth as I slide it on her. And we make sure that it comes together And yeah, we've got room to get the snap. It'll come together, the snap will hold it, that'll be great. And she'll have a new skirt, which of course you can't see because you're too close. So let's change that. Well, there she is, and the sun came out, so it's all kind of strange lighting, but I think it looks great. And yes, it's a little long on her, but since she doesn't have to stand in it, it's all good. I hope that you have enjoyed today's video, and that you have a delightful rest of your day and a wonderful week, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.